Hey, somebody's got to vacuum seal the fish. You did? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer.
The professor to the rescue!
Here, you and I will use common sense and all the wisdom we can muster to move beyond what is true and go all the way to the truth, creating measurable results for people like you and families like yours. No longer a member of the amateur ranks, I am the Professional Noticer.
Boy, the guy that wrote that must have been some kind of a nut.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. The Professional Noticer now has listeners in 72 countries. This past week we added Egypt, Cuba, and Norway. While our topics might seem to vary wildly at times, it is because the things you care about most are often greatly affected by the things you care about least. Therefore, we will field questions about business, spiritual issues, popular culture, and tackle the odd conundrum like, what is it about stoplights that makes everybody want to pick their nose? My purpose here today, and with every show we do, is to play the part of a best friend or coach. I want to help you live the life you would live if all your toughest questions were answered. The Professional Noticer is sponsored this week by GrowingDeer.com. If you already watch Growing Deer episodes or regularly visit the GrowingDeer.com website, you already know why the Professional Noticer is a fan. You know, my boys are fascinated by every episode, but they love all things outdoors. On the other hand, there's my wife, Polly. She loves the show too, and she loves all things indoors. How could that be? Probably because GrowingDeer.com is about so much more than deer. Wildlife biologist Dr. Grant Woods hosts every week's program. And the subjects range from scientific tips about providing the right crops for deer to reach their antler potential, or how predators stalk prey, and how you can thwart their intentions when they're trying to make a meal out of that beautiful little fawn. And sometimes we might see a show about making jerky. Dr. Grant's wife, Tracy, as well as their daughters, Raleigh and Ray, make frequent appearances, and the whole operation is just a great example for us about how family can work together and play together and support each other. And so I really do recommend that whether you're an outdoor person or not, certainly you know an outdoor person, turn them on to GrowingDeer.com. And you go check it out too. Okay, Dr. Grant ends each episode with this. So get outdoors and enjoy creation this week. Take some time to reflect and listen for what the Creator is saying to you. That's GrowingDeer.com. Observations and answers. Yeah, that's what we do here. I deliver the observations. You provide the questions, and questions are a critical component of the person you and I aspire to become. Always remember the quality of your answers can only be determined by the quality of your questions. So we want to ask great questions. This week, our first question is from Adele. She's from New Mexico. Let's listen.
Hello, Andy. This is Adele from New Mexico. My 20-year-old daughter is immensely talented. Like your son, she's had her own business since she was 14. She's done work as a photographer for an author in organizations like Mentor Leaders in Africa and Heritage Foundation. She actually had requests from Breitbart and other organizations she couldn't take because of schedule conflicts. She's done individual, family, and wedding shoots. She went into graphic design as her course of study in college and found that she loves all things graphic design, and she's at the top of her class. So my pride isn't just Mama's prejudice. All that to say, we cannot seem to, for the life of us, motivate her to do anything related to what she's studying as a source of income. As a younger person, she faced people not wanting to pay what her work was worth because of her age. And to be honest, I think it soured her. Now, when we suggest she create her own designs, drawings, paintings, digital work, or photography, she seems to have zero interest, and instead she's willing to be a waitress or barista, even though it's not the kind of work she would like to be doing. How do you motivate your college kid to do something she's absolutely incredible at? She's got the skills, mentors, and contacts to pursue many different avenues. We've offered to help her with resources to get started and all to no avail. How do we motivate her while at the same time being careful not to come across as too dictatorial? Thanks in advance, Adele.
Adele, thanks for the question. And I certainly identify with this question because, as you say, our sons have had businesses of their own. And one of the things that I would put in here very quickly is that you are correct. Your daughter is working from a point of immense talent. She has a gift, right? That photography thing, and especially when you take it into the graphic design stuff, that's one of those things that people can learn, the settings on a camera. They can learn the ways the computer works, or they can pull in that stuff. But ultimately, you can see that or you can't see that. I'm looking across here at Matthew, and I am just blown away at what Matt can do with graphic design and that kind of, and I am just always blown away because I just don't see it. Now, as a person who likes to take pictures, I don't consider myself a photographer, but as a person who likes to use a camera, I don't understand the settings or anything, but I can see that I can see that thing. I can see that that creation. I can see everything within that border. Now, my wife, Polly, as beautiful as she is and as talented as she is in many areas, she will take a picture and cut off the legs or have the tree growing out of somebody's head almost every time. So this is one of these things that if your daughter is immensely talented in this area, that's a gift. Okay. Now, the business part of that gift is a totally different thing, because many times creative people, and I'm a creative person, and I don't really I don't pay attention maybe to the business aspects of things as I probably should. I am a lot like Henry Ford in one area, and that is I don't necessarily know how the internal combustion engine works, but I do know how to surround myself with people who understand that stuff. And so while I understand principles of business, I probably don't pay attention to the detail as much as I should. And so your daughter has a gift that she loves doing, but she has not been, as you have said, she's not been motivated to really do anything related to what she's studying as a source of income. Now, I get it when you say that as a young person, she faced some people not wanting to pay what her work was worth because of her age. I remember having a conversation once with Austin, and I let's say he was 15. I don't really remember. I just remember the conversation, but I remember one time Austin saying, well, I really can't say that to them, or I really can't, I don't want to, I don't want to, do that, or I don't, and I told him, I said, buddy, I said, you are a 15-year-old and you are navigating a 40-year-old world. Okay. And so if you want to be paid like a 40-year-old, then you have to learn how to communicate. Even though you're 15, you have to learn to communicate as a 40-year-old. And so this is something that, I know you can't go back in time, and redo that. But for parents who are listening whose child might be starting a business of their own, I believe this is pretty good advice, okay? Because you do see people go, oh, they're doing such a cute little thing. And now there are entrepreneurs who are willing to actually pay more just because they are so excited about a young person who's actually doing something, okay? And so that can also be pointed out to a child. Now, you're in a situation now, Adele, where you suggest that she create her own designs, and she seems to have zero interest in it, and instead is willing to be a waitress or a barista, even though it's not the kind of work she wants to do. And then you ask the question, you ask the big question. You say, how do you motivate your college kid to do something she's incredible at? There's a couple of things at work here. One is your daughter's creativity and that spirit in her. There is whether it's a speaker or a writer or an artist or a photographer who is a kind of an artist or a graphic designer, singer, these creative types have a greater awareness of failure than the ordinary person, I believe. And the reason is because that fear of failure seems to be so personal. It's like when I deal with an editor in my books, and the editor says, you should cut this part. Really? I mean, that's like a part of me. It's like you're telling me my child is ugly. I mean, it's kind of a personal thing. Whereas somebody who might fail in another type of business or in a sport, that might be kind of seen as just part of the deal. But one of the things that I always remember, people sometimes say, well, you don't seem to have any fear of being on stage or public speaking. Yeah, but I remember what it was like. It took me a long time to get over it. I remember being able to, I would have a booking on, say, Saturday night, and on Wednesday, sit down to eat lunch or dinner and just think about Saturday night and immediately not be able to eat. I am so petrified or so, consumed with that, I couldn't eat. Even after I had some success, I remember the weird thing that would happen to me before I would go on stage. I remember being at Caesar's Palace with Joan Rivers and actually going to sleep in my dressing room, just in a chair, leaning my head back against the wall, about 10 minutes before I went on stage. And so that fear at that time would kind of manifest itself. I'd get really tired. And I think it was because of all the energy I expended getting to that point and making myself get to that point. Now, it is kind of second nature. But for your daughter right now, Adele, she's experiencing a fear. I would imagine she's experiencing a fear of what feels like a personal rejection of her work. That she would present this to somebody and they not like it. And that's going to happen, right? I mean, that's going to happen. I always think about The Traveler's Gift. This is a book that is, in 40 different languages. It sold millions of copies, and yet it was turned down by 51 different publishers before I ever got it published. So to think that Margaret Mitchell, who wrote Gone with the Wind, and, Gone with the Wind was turned down by 32 different publishers. Vince Flynn was turned down by 50-something publishers before he ever got his first Mitch Rapp book published. Rudyard Kipling was told he didn't have a command of the English language. Dr. Seuss was told that his rhymes were ridiculous and didn't have a market for children, and on and on and on and on and on. There are greater successes in the people who did not make it to the top 20 in American Idol than there are within the winners circles of American Idol. And so to think that your daughter is not going to face that is ridiculous, right? And she knows that. It's just that she is having a hard time stepping out on it right now. And being a waitress is more comfortable. Okay, so how do you motivate your kid to do something she's incredible at? Okay, here's where I got some kind of tough love for you. Okay, she's 20. She's 20. She's not 14 anymore. And you say she's got skills, mentors, and contacts to pursue many different avenues. She knows that. She already knows that. You say we've offered to help her with the resources to get started. And then you say, how do we motivate her while not coming across as dictatorial? Okay, you got to remember, she's 20. So she can do pretty much whatever she wants to do. She can go wherever she wants to go. She can, be whatever she wants to be. And you're not going to be able to tell her or really even personally motivate her probably to do what you think she should do at this time, even though you believe that direction is the right direction. And I do too. Okay. I mean, it probably is the right direction, but timing is everything for people. And, it's like I look at our sons now. I have a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old. And our 19-year-old is treated very, probably very differently than our 16-year-old, because our 19-year-old can leave, right? I mean, I can irritate him to the point that he doesn't want to hear me anymore. And so as our children go from teenagers into our adult children, they're always our children, but as they grow into adults, we have to be careful not to push so hard that they shut us out. Now, even with teenagers, I'll just tell you, I mean, you can say, have you studied for the test? Are you studying for the test? Have you studied enough? How long have you studied? Did you study what you're supposed to? When did you start? When did you finish? Do you know the material? Are you sure you know the material? Come here and get me the material and you can do all that if you want, okay, but you're not really going to make them study anymore. The only thing you're going to do is make them irritated at you and less likely to listen to you. We have to be very careful as to what we tell our children or how we talk to our children as they get older, all right? Because they have more choices as they get older, and one of those choices is to stay away from you. So I understand the desire to help financially and the offer to help financially, but ultimately, the decision in a creative person to face that fear often comes when they're broke. Because, listen, don't be fooled. Your daughter knows that she has her hand on a fortune. She has her hand on a way to make a much better living than she would as a waitress. And the timing for her to choose that and to go in that direction will be hers. But if you financially prop her up, it will be delayed. Okay? But I think everything is great. I think, while we always want quicker results for our children, faster situations for our children, one of the reasons that Austin really faced some fears and got started is because he knew, from the time he was about 13, he knew I was not buying him a car. And so whatever amount of money he had, I was not buying him a car when he turned 16. So whatever kind of money he had and however he earned it, that was the kind of car he was going to have. And so that motivation is often an undercurrent of situations we allow our children to face. All right? Thanks so much for the question, Adele. I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. Our next question is from John. Let's listen.
Hey, Andy, this is John from Colorado. I enjoyed your podcast on the father guiding the son and setting life goals. Because I have a 10-year-old son, if you don't mind, I have a couple of follow-up questions. My son loves baseball, and he made the top-level team for his age group and league last year. When I talked to him about where he wants to be at age 25, if his answer is that he wants to be a professional baseball player, how would you respond to that answer? I also have an 8-year-old daughter, and do you recommend the same process for girls? On an unrelated note, my wife and I own a franchise. In 2017 and again last year, I suggested to our chief operating officer that she book you to speak at our annual conference, and still you're not on the agenda. Any tips as to how I might persuade her to book you? Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to hearing your answer.
Okay, excellent question. Thank you, John. First of all, I want to make something a little more clear than I obviously did. Now, John, you say that you have a 10-year-old son. Now, I'm thinking a 10-year-old is a little young for the serious conversation that I really suggest about that age 25 thing. Okay? I'm not saying you don't get him started toward that. But for most kids, it is like 12 or 13 that particular conversation really needs to take place. With a 10-year-old, if he wants to be a professional baseball player, I say great. That's great. I remember, but it's because at 10 years old, even though your son made the team for top level for his age group and his league. At 10 years old, a lot of kids think they're going to be professional baseball players. A lot of kids think they're going to play professional basketball. And I remember talking to a friend of mine, Ray Knight, Ray was the most valuable player in the 1986 World Series, cover of Sports Illustrated. And if you don't remember which World Series the 86 World Series was, it was the World Series where Mookie Wilson hit the ground ball that went through Bill Buckner's legs. That was the 86 World Series between the Mets and the Red Sox. And Ray Knight ended up being the most valuable player for the Mets in that particular World Series. I remember talking to him, and Ray is from Albany, Georgia, which they pronounce it Albany. And Ray talked about how he was the best growing up, all through those leagues and all. But then when he got past high school and got, into that college ball and got into a single A rookie ball, and that it was a totally different deal. And so the statistics are against any 10-year-old. Now, am I saying that your 10-year-old is not the 10-year-old? No, I'm not saying that. But I believe that your particular question may work itself out on its own in some way that you don't really expect it to work out. I remember one time, and in fact, Adam, my son Adam was about 10, and he had played football for a year and loved it. He loved it. And, we always looked at Adam and we thought, Austin had this little golfer's body, he's like skinny, but Adam had this thicker, kind of, and Austin was always very cautious. Adam, he wasn't cautious at all. And Adam also did not have he had some kind of weird pain tolerance. I mean, I remember one time Adam, as a little kid, like 3 years old, toddling behind me on the stairs, and I'm kind of watching him very carefully. He's right behind me. But then I get down to about the fifth or fourth stair or something, and this is wooden stairs over a wooden floor. And I just kind of went on down, and then I turned around, and he had stopped. And I said, "Come on, buddy, come on down." And he dove out and landed, face first, right on the this hard floor. And of course, I'm horrified. And Adam just kind of looked up at me and grinned, and he said, "That hurt." And so we always looked at Adam and said, "Man, is that what NFL players are like? That, because you watch them get hit and you think, how is this guy even going to get up?" And then they keep playing. We think there's got to be some weird pain tolerance that they have. And so here's Adam, and he's not scared of anything. He was good on the football field. It didn't hurt him. I remember the day that they put on pads. It was Adam's first year playing. I remember the day we put on pads, and I had a football player friend of mine say, "Okay, here we go," because the day they put on pads is the day kids find out whether they're really suited for football or not. And I remember watching Adam just get slaughtered. I'm watching from the fence, and, he's like 50 or 60 yards away, and he's new to the game, and there's older kids out there in pads that are just absolutely bulldozing him, and I'm cringing. And then when they take a break, Adam runs straight to me at the fence, and I'm thinking, here we go. He's going to be crying. He's going to be saying, "I can't do this. Please don't let me." I'm steeling myself for saying, "Hang in there." And Adam runs to me, gets right up to me, and he says, "This is great. I love this." I was like, "Really? Okay." Because I remember playing in the 6th grade and I didn't love it, but he loved it. So here we go. Well, at the end of the year, after, he was going to be an NFL player. I mean, that, he would tell me what team he was going to play on and, what position he was going to play, but he missed some Saturdays of hunting season. And so he asked me, because his brother and I went, and he had to stay at home with Mom so he could do his practice or his game or whatever. And so Austin and I went a different direction. And after the year was over, Adam asked me, he said, "Dad, is football season always during hunting season?" And I said, "Yes, it is." He said, "Oh, okay, well, I'm not going to play in the NFL." So I'm just saying, John, your problem may take care of itself. And at the age of 10, if he wants to be a professional baseball player, absolutely. Okay. But I would caution you not to get too caught up in that yourself. Be careful that you don't plant that absolute in his mind. Because that way, at some point, if he decides he doesn't want to be a professional baseball player, or if it becomes apparent that he's not going to be a professional baseball player, you don't want that to be a huge deal in his mind that he has disappointed you. Okay? You say you also have an 8-year-old daughter, and do you recommend the same process for girls? I absolutely do, but at the age of 12 or 13. I mean, you'll know when it's right, but I really believe 10 is too young for everybody, and 8 obviously is. But man, it sounds like I envy you with a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. It's just clay that you get to mold and to watch and have fun with, and so I envy your time there. And you say on an unrelated note that your wife and you own a franchise, and you can't get your COO to book me at the annual conference. Well, I mean, that's okay. She doesn't know who I am, and so that's all right. But the tip I have as to how you might persuade her to book me at your annual conferences at some time during the year, give her a book. Okay, give her the noticer, give her the traveler's gift, and the other thing is that is real easy. Go to premierspeakers.com. That's PREMIERE speakers.com, and search for Andy Andrews. And there's a short video on there of me and about the speaking, and you can send that to her, and hopefully she'll be interested, and hopefully you and your wife and I can hang out a bit at your annual conference. Okay? Thanks so much, John, and have fun with those kids. Okay? I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing that tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, smile while you talk, shake hands with the kids you meet, and make sure you have an answer to the question, if a locomotives engineer is fired from his job, has his career been derailed? And so until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Chain. 3D glasses provided for the cast and crew by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by Polly's Grammar Police. Polly's Grammar Police, an international association of individuals who, as a group, have appointed themselves to protect and defend the English language with regards to correct sentence structure and proper pronunciation of individual words. They have no official government mandate or power to imprison offenders, but make no mistake, if you or someone you love ends a sentence with a preposition, Polly's Grammar Police will pounce and public humiliation will ensue. Do you pronounce the word often by incorrectly saying often? Do you pronounce the word supposedly by incorrectly saying supposedly? Do you say irregardless, ignoring the fact that irregardless is not even a word? You, my friend, are in danger of being called out in front of your peers. And so, while we at The Professional Noticer do appreciate the additional financial consideration provided by Polly's Grammar Police, we also feel the stress of living with the association's founding member. Therefore, you and me, or me and you, or you and I, let's just say that we would do well to get it right. Polly's Grammar Police.